In this exercise, we're going to use layers to help us create an image that is drawn that's similar to what Microsoft has provided as a background image in Windows 7. And in our layers, we'll create our cobblestones, our gradients, our little flowers and vines. And we'll see how layers will let us control many of these elements. Okay, let's begin. I want to create my background gradient first. So I will select what appears to be this upper color. It's more of a peach color. So I'll choose something in that region, maybe a little lighter. And for time's sake, I'm not going to try to make this exact, but I'll get close. Since I haven't used the select tool to define a space to put my gradient in, the gradient will be applied to all of the screen. So my gradient is done, but I noticed from my original that this gradient kind of fades into a green. Well, how do you do a three-color gradient? Well, I don't think I really get to, but what I can do is use the color picker and choose where that border might be, which would be, I suppose, right about here, to be my primary color. Let's make sure I have selected primary color picker. So I'm going to have it start right about there. And then my secondary color will be my destination color, which was probably a dark green. And I will use now my select tool. And if I draw a selection in the area from where I picked my color, I should be able to draw in my gradient. Choose gradient and draw it in, and now it fades from that color to green. It's almost as if I have a three-color gradient. Now that's my background layer, and I want it to stay that color. I don't want anything else to change. If I were to draw something on this and create a condition where it's different, and then I change my mind, I can't go back and erase it or delete it or change its edge. So I'm going to leave this way. And to do that, I will set that as background. And the only way you can keep it as the background is to actually add another layer. So I'll use the Layers tool. I'll click the plus here to add a layer, layer 2, and we'll use that layer. Now this layer is going to be for my cobblestone. So I think I'm going to label that stone path. So to do that, I'll go to Properties and type in stone path. I recommend that you label your layers when you can, because it can get confusing when you have a stack of layers and you're trying to sort out and organize or plan your drawing. Let's take a look again at what was originally drawn. It looks like I have kind of a gray-blue stone on a dark green background. So let's see if we can do that. But I noticed that there's a pattern in those stones. It looks like some of the stones are replicated. I think we can use that so that we don't spend all of our day drawing all of those stones. So let's get started on our new layer, which is here. I'll draw generally where I believe the path is. I'll make it a little bit big. I'll use my select tool and start from the outside edge about a fourth way in. Bring a line up well past where I think it ought to be, and then on the other side well past where it ought to be, and in that space I'll just pour with a paint bucket this green color. Now I don't want to switch it yet, but if I choose the paint bucket and use my other mouse button, my right mouse button, I'll get that solid green color. And I think that's dark enough. Let's make it a little darker. I can change down here the value so it becomes a little darker. Yeah, that looks better. With my paintbrush is selected, so I'll draw a stone on the correct layer. Now this is something I've experienced, and you will experience until you get a feel for it. I've forgot to check my layers, and I'm certain that on my background I have the outline of a stone, because that's what was selected. Whichever layer you select, that's where you're drawing. So I don't want that there, so I'll press Control Z and Z again. Now I'll take a look and see it's gone. Good. So I want to only draw on this. One of the ways that I will be sure to make it draw in the right place is to look over and see and look at the layer that I'm drawing on. So now I think I'm fine. So I'll click here, and we could do this layer do this once more with another layer. I can actually draw in layer 3 and draw my stones. My intention is to create a nice cluster here. Is a believable set of stones in a path. I think we're just about done. So let's use this pattern. I will use this select tool. Again, I'll select it on purpose. I should be able to select all of it and copy and paste this. And before we get too carried away with that, I'll tell you why it works. If I press Control C, that copies it. If I were to turn off the stone path and the background, I can see that I have selected and copied my stones and a transparent layer. So the only thing I'm going to be pasting are the stones. I'll use my select tool, the lasso, and I'll select right around my stones, and I'll copy and I'll paste. So there are my stones. Well, now I need to trim off these rocks, and I want to create a condition where this area is a little bit darker. Well, as dark as our original. And this is going to define the edge of my path. So I think I'll start here on the edge. It's going to be a little irregular as I draw up, and I'll go across the top and down. Again, it's a regular path, but it follows my plan. And so I have this centered selection. Now I'm going to change or use this background. Since it's selected, if I were to press delete right here, then I can see through that. And if I promote or raise that background to be above, it trims off the edge of my stones. Okay, now what layer am I looking at? So this is the top layer, but this isn't dark enough on the side, so I need to add another gradient, I suppose. Secondary color to be the dark green and the primary color to be quite transparent. That looks like that did it. Okay, so I'm ready to continue. Now to draw these sprite looking things, I need a brighter colored green. So I'll just choose one. In this new layer I've created called grasslets, I'm going to create the little shapes that are used to fill in all the space around these pseudo flowers. Now if I look at the pattern of these, I see little V shapes and it looks like it's almost done with a paintbrush shape, and we don't have that in our tool, so we'll have to fake that a little bit. But I also notice in the pattern that some of its characteristics look a lot like these larger flowers. In fact, if I analyze those, I can see that this is the same as this, except it's flipped. And if I analyze it further, this one are identical, and this one, and this one are identical.
Pasting this pattern of stones.
A lot of these are the same. In fact,
making
maybe
them smaller and smaller as it goes into the background. Then maybe I'll copy a swath of them,
four
paste that
distinct
swath
patterns.
with a larger pattern, and glue this all to
those
speed things up.
patterns may even be visible in this filler. So I think I'll approach this by creating one of these patterns and then copying out of it a section and pasting it, and changing its color, of course. And I think I can do that. So let's set that up and see if it works. To begin, I think I'll zoom in a little bit so I have more control with the image I'm drawing. I'm not really worried about the scale. If I draw this too big, I can always shrink it. I've chosen a light colored green, and I think I'll start from the center and work out. So we'll do one of the regular round ones, and I'll start with a pattern. So if that's the center of my pseudo flower, I'll just continue to draw and make it bigger. Well, I think I'll work with that and see how it turns out. The plan is to select all of this region that we've just drawn on this new layer and paste it. So I'll use the lasso select tool, go around this image, and I'll copy it and I'll paste it. So now I have a new one. But notice there's kind of a shadow, not shadow, but it erases the area, so I can't just overlap these. There's got to be some way where I can paste this again without it affecting. Now that on this layer, it's all transparent, so that shouldn't be there. At least in my mind, it shouldn't. So I'll press Control Z. Now it's still selected. Let's try this. Since it's selected, we will copy it, and we'll click Edit and paste into New Layer. So we have our new layer, and as I move it, now it is transparent in the background. Okay, well that solved that, I suppose. So now I can make it smaller and place it where I might need it. I've got my pattern drawn, I've made a copy, so I'll add some more of those in various places. Okay, I'm going to select my new small green flower here, my original. Now I have to be on the right layer, so I believe this is the layer called Bloom. I can see a part of that in my layers thumbnail. So I've selected it, and I'll copy it and I'll paste it again. The intention is to create a new one, so place in a new layer, and that looks like layer 7. And then let's try to change the color and shade of this. There's more than one way to make this change. I'm going to use adjustments and use the curve, and I'm just going to grab it here and brighten it a little bit, because that's really what my intention is. That looks similar to what I see in the background. So I'll click OK, and now I have a new one. If I copy this and paste it again, I have a new layer. This will be layer 8. I can make this element smaller and move it around and paste it in my drawing. Okay, I'm going to add some vines, and to do that I'm going to start with the color picker. I want to make sure that my background color is this dark color, so I'll pick it. I think I've got it. Let's check and see. Yep, that's my primary color. And then I'll try using the curve line tool. That's the one I have. Brush width. Oh, let's make it a little thicker. And we'll start by putting a tree branch right over here. We'll start by taking it up. This ought to be a good height to start with. I have some controls that I can bend this with. So there's my tree branch. We'll do it that way. From right beside it to the same destination, and see if I can duplicate this a little bit and make it look narrower. Now, as much as I can close, the better. So, and what I've done is I've created an effect where it looks like it's getting wider. I'll switch to paintbrush, and I'll draw within this space and simply fill in. Well, I think putting the stems in, or the branches in, was probably the most rewarding part of this project. Hopefully you've learned or experienced how using layers can, in this case, let us create what looks like a very difficult drawing and make it seem simpler. I think we're going to call this done, and I enjoyed making it.